wake up. And maybe you better do it the way you hear it. Do it for me. No, I mean, just go ahead.
This is William Shatner, and I would like to invite you to take a journey with me into the 21st century. So take the next few minutes and listen very closely. You'll be amazed at what you hear.
Is that the way you'd like me to do it? Okay, I'll do it that way. Okay, ready. This is William Shatner, and I would like to invite you to take a journey with me into the 21st century. So take the next few minutes and listen very closely. You'll be amazed at what you hear. Okay, so I think that came pretty close. No, I believe that you asked that was about the way you did it. I wasn't jesting.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know.
No, I insist. Now.
Okay, it's time to start the Jeff Sargent Show.
Was that satisfactory to you?
No. I don't know. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut.
No, because if your mouth were open, you'd have popped some pills in them. So do the next paragraph for me so I can get an idea of how you want it. This is page 2.
Well, I don't know. I really don't want to because I think you actually have a much better feel.
No, I don't think I do. I would like to hear you read the second paragraph so I can do it that way.
Wow.
Let me hear.
Now that I've looked at the different things you did, I really like the first one.
No, I like it better the way you did it. I insist that you show me how to do page 2. Really, I mean it. Please, read so I can get an idea of what you want. No, I'm going to do it the way you think it should go. No, I am going to do it the way you're reading it. Okay? I know you're here to see that I do it the way the company wants it, so I'm going to do it the way you read it.
Well, but I don't want you to do it.
But you're telling me how you want me to do it.
Well, I'm sorry.
No. I am going to do it your way. No, there's no apology necessary. You know what you want. You know what you want.
No, I don't. I
mean, you come in here and you don't know what you want?
Well, I come in here because I know you're a professional. I mean, and you know how to do it. And I'm sorry I even said
Okay. Speaking of being ponderous and being an asshole.
Don't come in here on an upbeat tempo when I have to talk about a fucking kid and a fucking dog.
Yeah. Kindergarten is closed. Another day.
No, it's now open.
Okay, kindergarten is open.
We're going to do a countdown. We got about 40 seconds, and we're going to start the Jeff Sargent Show.
No shit, Sherlock.
You got your music turned up? We're starting a little early.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. We got 27 seconds.
Jack is calling at 7:15, I believe.
Start the countdown. What's your name again?
Janky, I'm your co-host. Second banana, Jeff Sargent Show.
Second banana. We're bananas in pajamas. We're coming down the stairs. I used to sing that with Kim and Raymond.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're on.
You know, when you hear this intro, you know whose show it is. You know what time it is. It's 7 a.m. on Chaotic Radio in Rancho Cucamonga.
In the Southland.
In the Southland, just 45 minutes from Hollywood.
In Los Angeles.
It's the Jeff Sargent Show.
With Jeff Sargent, Roy and Jimmy.
And your co-host, Janky.
Thank you, sir. Wake your ass up.
And the third musketeer, Dan Rupp. Look, it's producer Dan, executive producer.
The watcher, the fixer, everyone's favorite trickster, Dan the Man Rupp.
Yes.
Engineer, janitor.
Yeah,
Janitor, kindergarten teacher.
The abused.
I'm the substitute teacher.
He's a substitute teacher. Everybody.
Everybody loves a substitute teacher.
You get a break.
King of kindergarten, Dan Rupp. Okay, guess what, man?
Jam-packed show today, boys.
Yeah, it's a jam-packed. We're going to have our buddy Scott Essman. Who's Scott Essman? What does he do?
Film professor, great guy, really smart, really fun.
He's over at Laverne College University.
He is University of Laverne. Also teaches film class in Orange County as well.
I always saw that tent with the 4 udders. It looks like a cow's udder. The tent when you go downtown Laverne. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan's kind of Dan's right over there. Dan's kind of a fixture here at Chaotic. Scott is a fixture over at ULV. So he's amazing. He's funny.
And we're going to have some call-ins from a few celebrities. We've got an author who writes books, just like you.
Yes, Bertram Gibbs.
And we have General Zod's first henchman.
None.
From the 1978 Superman!
The movie, which turns 39 tomorrow, when the film came out on December 15th, 1978. He also starred in 1976's King Kong, which also opened this week in the
Yes,
70s.
he did that, released right before Superman.
He did that with Bertram Gibbs, who was also a character in the movie who's calling it.
Both characters in that movie, and but a lot of people, they don't notice it because we're focused on the great King Kong, right?
Yes.
And the Skull Island natives, so they're pretty scary too.
That's the last time you would have African skull natives.
Yeah.
Remember, King Kong got in trouble. They did that in the mid-70s, I guess. Yeah, mid-70s. And I mean, there have been so many King Kong remakes of late. There's been the Peter Jackson one. There's been the cartoon. There's been the recent Skull Island.
I remember the King Kong. You know the name of King Kong. 10 times as big as a man. And he had that 12-year-old kid who wore the sweater and the collared shirt, sat on his shoulder. Come on, Kong. And he was just a gentle giant, just like our buddy Janky here. Just imagine having a little guy sitting on your shoulder, you know. Herb, what's his name from Fantasy Island?
Village Chase.
Yeah. Have him riding on your shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, and a shout out to Amy Cote, who's been on the show.
We love her. She's so wonderful.
We love her.
She's beautiful.
If we got paid from this radio station, we could fly her out here.
We could.
And she was a guest on the show, and her dad's windbreaker is still here. We're ready for him to come get it.
No. Amy Cody's from the East
She's
Coast.
the one who called in.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
get your
she's
stuff
you're right,
right, man.
Amy's the delightful girl from the phone from Pennsylvania.
You called Lance the drummer from Oingo Boingo when you posted it, you knucklehead.
Wait a minute. Gary was the drummer.
No, none of them were. Johnny Vatos is the drummer.
What did he do in Oingo Boingo? I know Johnny Vatos. I did.
So why are you calling Lance the drummer?
Was Lance in Oingo Boingo?
He was the guitar player.
Then he was. Oh wow, one typo.
You know what? I talked to Benny. I called up Benny. I saw Greg. I called Mark Hefferman. I told them our sponsors from Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange. I hope they ambushed the show. I told them to come in and represent. That is Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange, a proud sponsor of the Jeff Sargent Show in downtown Upland.
I wish we had some New York bagels right now.
Oh, wait a second. I'm not done plugging our sponsor. You want a fine cigar, the finest humidor in the Inland Empire, and probably Southern California. Who knows, man? These guys are awesome. And they have wines from Northern California, Southern California, even France and Spain, all over the world. And they have live music on the weekends. That's Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange, man. And when I'm hungry in the morning, what do you want to do?
I want to eat a New York bagel.
I want to eat a New York bagel. that it might as well be, it's like it was made in New York. Why? Tell us, Dan.
I want it made by Jamal.
They import the water from New York.
Wow.
And it's made fresh in the store. They're not the frozen bagels that you get at Albertsons or Ralph's. It's they freshly make them there. They boil them, and then they bake them, and they're great. They're delicious. I wish I had time to have stopped and got some this morning, but I had some other things.
You look
to
up
do.
fresh in the dictionary, and you'll see Jamal's Bagels in the dictionary right there.
I want to make pudding with the water from Pudding Stone.
Yeah. Pudding. Let's make pudding from Pudding Stone pudding. Put in your dick where it don't belong. Yeah.
On the cover, it'll be speedboats running around.
No, it'd be Bill.
Hey, well, look, it's Professor Scott Essman all the way
Scott Essman, ladies and
from the
gentlemen.
University of Laverne.
Yes, sir.
Have a seat. Have a seat on microphone number 4.
Microphone number 4.
It's a side feed mic. You talk right into that rubber band.
Boy, look where the rubber band is pointing and speak into it.
Cool. I could speak into a rubber band.
Yeah.
Why not?
Excellent.
Thank you for doing the show, Scott.
Hey,
Absolutely.
did you know our other sponsor? Devilo's cereal, toasted oat 666 with marshmallow pentagrams, and it comes with a Devil's Plaything in every box. And this month they're having, on specially marked boxes, a Danzig record on the back. Remember
No,
the honey?
no, we don't want to meet Danzig again. No, you can change the entire episode.
Okay, I guess they're not our sponsor. Okay, I just made that up.
I would love a water as well.
Water.
Sir.
From
Water.
Niagara Falls. Get them the
Water.
Niagara
I
Falls
want
water.
New York water, you son of a bitch. So, Scotty, how are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. How are you guys?
Good.
It's a little windy outside.
Oh,
Isn't that
yeah.
great?
Help dry my hair.
Well, you look
Damn.
great, Samson.
Everything is blow dried this morning because it's kind of like the hot wind on your shoulder thing. I just felt
Got
Stan
hot
Ridgway
wind
when
on my shoulder.
Yeah, I have a hot wind on my shoulder. Yep, coming in from
Thank you
south
very
of the
much.
border. But I'm on a chaotic radio.
No one appreciates what Jeff does.
I remember that song. I'm on the Mexican radio.
Yeah, it's also-
Early 80s.
Exactly.
I
Stan
love
Ridgway.
Stan Ridgway.
Wall
from
of Voodoo.
Yeah.
You know, he did.
There was
Stan,
a video, MTV video. For
yeah,
it.
one of the first, actually.
that
you
right?
know? One of the very first.
It's a really early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
81 or 82.
81 is when it came on. I just read a book, 500-page book, but a great book called I Want My MTV.
Oh, wow.
And interesting thing about it is there were only like a dozen or so videos, and Wall of Voodoo happened to have one, and that's why they got thrown into heavy rotation. You know, anybody with a video had a show suddenly.
In the early days, only a couple, huh?
Queen and David Bowie did that amazing song Under Pressure, but they were falling out. So the whole video was put together by like an editor, because neither Queen or David Bowie would do the video. And it became a very expensive video because of all the, half of them are public domain clips, other half they had to pay for. But it's this iconic video where you don't see either band. You don't see Bowie, you don't see Queen.
I remember.
Yeah, they just took clips of public domain clips and put them all together.
Paid for some, which was why it became expensive.
I remember Nosferatu in that.
Yeah. And exactly. The girl waking up in the morning. Now, Dan, how would you? Dan is in the booth. Good man. Now, Scott, how would you describe your show? What would your title officially be? Professor, film professor at ULV.
That's one of them. I'm a hyphenate, I guess. But
You're a filmmaker as well.
yeah, I teach down in Laverne a few days a week, and then I'm in Orange County at the Art Institute the other days a week.
Are you also teaching film down there?
Yeah, I've been there for 13 years.
Wow.
Doing film classes.
I sat in a couple of your classes. By the way, he got the last appearance of a filmmaker named Mel Stewart. Mel was the director of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Mel also was the cousin of Stan the Man Lee, a Marvel Comics fan.
Is that right? I didn't know they
yeah.
were cousins. They're both from back east.
How was that, by the way? I was exhausted. I was coming back from an audition. I almost dropped in, And then he died like a week later.
He died, yeah. We had him out, and he was cranky because it was a long drive from Beverly Hills. That was a long drive, he goes. And I said, oh, I'm in trouble.
You can tell he was bitching from the get-go.
And I let him cool off, and he made a phone call, and then we went in, and we just saw the very, very end of the movie because I had started the movie. And
Smart.
then,
It's a long movie.
yeah. And then I sat him down, and then he was fine once he was in front of the people and all that. The guy who played Mike TV, Paris Themin, told me that he was a little prickly. He said, Mel
Wow.
Stewart, you got to watch out for him. He's hot and cold. But, of course, once he gets talking about Willy Wonka and the other stuff he's done in his career, he's very nice. And he was very kind and courteous. And, yeah, he died. It was real sad.
But he died like a week. You got him right ahead of the Reaper. I mean, you know, and what was this? Did he talk about the Tim Burton remake? He must have been unhappy with it,
Yeah,
right?
he didn't like it at all.
No, nobody did.
He just said, I've heard people who do like it. I've
Millennials.
on Facebook. Well, I'll say, you know, one of my favorite movies ever is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and some people will say, well, what about the Tim Burton version?
Yeah,
And
what
I'll
about
say,
it?
well, you know, it's really not. And then they'll point to things that were in the Burton version from the book that didn't make it into Mel Stewart, because the Mel Stewart one is heavily rewritten from the Roald Dahl book.
You know who wrote it, right?
David Seltzer,
David Seltzer, who wrote The Omen. Isn't that amazing?
and he's still
Wait,
alive.
the same
Yeah.
guy that wrote The Omen.
Wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Wow.
Willy Wonka.
You
And-
can have
Oh, yeah,
fantasy
yeah.
and fun,
Based
family
on the
fun
book, yeah.
to dark, deep evil. I mean, wow.
Willy Wonka, and then Seltzer was really young at the time, and Mel Stewart, this is a quick story, said that they didn't know how to end the movie, and he called Seltzer, who was back in, I believe, Connecticut or New England, and Mel Stewart was in Germany making the film. That was the whole idea, is they wanted to shoot everything in Germany for Willy Wonka, and he says, how are we going to end the film? They're on a call, and he says, just tell him, you know what happened to the boy who got everything he wanted, and Charlie will look at him, and he said, he lived happily after ever.
Wow, ever after.
And
Wow.
then he called that line in literally, and they fed it to Gene Wilder, and then they shot the ending of the movie.
And the Wonka Vader shooting into the air.
The
That's a
Wonka
great
Vader.
ending, by the way.
Blue screen scene, and it's over the whole town.
Wow.
No, that's a great movie. It's a childhood favorite.
I like how the set from the air was, you know, the slopey roofs, the ghetto, how everything, all the houses were like slum and ran over, and they all had leaks in the roof. And,
Yeah,
and
Grandpa sleeping with Mom, and
Albertson's amazing in that. The old man is too lazy to get out of
yeah.
bed, basically.
And then he finally gets out of bed and sings a song.
Yeah.
I've got a golden ticket. I've got a golden chance
By the way,
to make
what a
my
song.
dreams.
And Anthony Newley, by the way.
Yeah,
you
right,
know,
wrote those
he used to
songs.
be married to Joan Collins.
And he wrote the Candyman, the song that the guy
Sammy
sings.
Davis
in
Jr.
The Candyman.
Now, Sammy Davis Jr. did it before the movie. That wasn't
No,
written for
no,
the
no.
movie.
I thought it was written
Was
for
it?
the movie, wasn't it?
You know what? I'm not sure.
Oh,
What came
see
first? That would be a good
I
Google,
believe
Googleation right there.
it's Anthony Newley, so I believe it was written for the movie, and Davis Jr. covered it afterwards.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
You know, 'cause
the Candyman can, he sings in the shop, and the Charlie can't afford to buy any candy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. So he's never going to win.
He finally says, "All right," and he gives the kid a candy bar. But the one that the golden ticket that he finds, he finds money in the sewer, and he gets the
That's
money
right.
out of the sewer.
He had to he had like a couple of English coins
Yeah,
there.
all right.
His mom gives it to him after work. Remember? Yeah. One of the things I loved about your class, Scott, I've come in for a couple, for when you had guests I interviewed who I knew were really entertaining. And you showed American Werewolf in London with John Landis. My late Schooner brother Tom had never met Landis, and he goes, "Oh, I'd love to come to think." And you said, "Yeah, bring him." And we're sitting in the back of the room, and Landis comes in and sits next to Tom, and he notices Landis. Landis is nervous, so his white sneakers are going a mile a minute. And he said the only time Landis's foot calmed down was during Jenny Agutter's shower scene in American Werewolf.
And then he relaxed.
Then he relaxed, and his foot went back to. Landis gets before your students, and Landis turns around and he says, "What makes a filmmaker? And what makes a film director?" And this girl says, "A great vision." Wrong. "A good script." Wrong. So Landis goes throughout the room, wrong, 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 wrong. And then he turns around after befuddling all your students and says, a film director has actually directed a film. It was hilarious, you know?
And then he said, he held up a smartphone and said, you have no excuse now not to make a film. You
By
can
the way,
make,
yeah, you film it with
you can
this.
shoot it with this. You don't
That
need
was-
fancy equipment anymore.
Brilliant.
Shoot it, edit it. Yeah, he was a good guest. He came out there almost, not a bribe, but
Hey, look, Dan's showing
he
something
needed-
in the
he
window.
needed help.
Phone call.
Where it is, it's not showing up here on the screen. Talk to me, Dan.
Is this Jolton Jack Halloran? Jack
This is
O'Halloran.
Jack O'Halloran.
Hey,
Jack,
morning, Jack.
all right,
Wow.
Jack, all right.
Jack, you're here in the studio with Jeff, me, Scott Essman, and Dan the Man Rupp. Can we talk to you
morning.
this morning, sir? This is a big week for you. This week is the anniversary of both Superman the movie for Richard Donner and for your film, Dino De Laurentiis' King Kong. What comes to mind about these two epics, sir?
Kong was a fun film because it was a great cast. You know, Jesse and Jeffrey and Eddie Lauder, and it was Renee Bergeron.
Oh, that's right. And Bertram Gibbs, too, remember?
Yeah, we had a good time actually. It was a long shoot, one of the longest, I guess the second longest picture I ever worked on. I think we worked like 9 months. on the
Wow,
picture.
that's a long time.
On King Kong,
Yeah.
what island did you shoot on, Jack?
Sorry,
What island played Skull Island in the movie?
in Kauai.
Wow.
We shot on the Isle of Kauai. The amazing thing was that the landing shot that we were trying to get in Kauai, we wound up shooting in Malibu.
Really?
Oh, wow.
The shot of you guys taking shore, that's Malibu?
Yeah, well, because the wind was, they couldn't lay the fog down. Well, like because we were coming through this fog to reach the island, and we were trying to do it in Kauai. And we went to Kauai supposedly for 3 days. We were there for 33 days.
Wow.
Amazing.
Now,
Wow.
Ed Lauder and Jeff Bridges both told me you guys got a lot of time to kick around in Kauai because Jessica Lange could not work when the arm was malfunctioning.
Well, it was that, and the director was, John Gillerman. They could have chosen a better director. He was the one who was trying to he was determined to get this one shot off of on the landing deal, and they kept telling him that he would never be able to lay the smoke down because of the weather, and he kept telling them he was a sailor and he knew better.
And did he?
Well, I tell you, it was one of the. We worked on a. I don't know if you know much about working on location on a film, but when you're working on location, and you work overtime, it's like double time, and then when you work overtime on a Sunday, it's like double golden time.
Wow.
And we worked on a Sunday. We worked 15 straight hours. We had 7 straight meal penalties, and we
Wow.
never turned the camera over.
Oh, no.
Wow.
7 meal penalties without a frame of film shot?
Yeah, in other words, you have a meal penalty because he was determined to get a shot that he couldn't get, and you kept going past your meal. You're supposed to have a break for your meal,
Right.
so they give you what they call a meal penalty. If you go 1 or 2 minutes past this, you get a meal penalty. We had seven meal penalties. We made
Oh,
a
my
fortune.
God.
We made a fortune in one day.
Wow. Hey, tell us about De Laurentiis. Do you know De
Dino
Laurentiis?
was an interesting individual. I learned a lot about production from Dino De Laurentiis. He was an interesting guy. Kong cost probably about $36 million when it could have been done for $16 million.
Wow.
When you have 6 producers on the set making decisions that don't know what they're doing, you keep every time you reshoot something, it costs you double. It's just.
Especially in those
economics.
days when you're using film.
Because when they made that movie, like you said about the meal penalties, New York in the 70s had platinum time. I heard Superman and King Kong both kept running afoul of it,
Oh, Superman ran a long time. What we were doing a technology. We broke a lot of rules technology-wise. You know, when you look at, that's why when you look at Superman today, it's such an epic classic, because we were flying under bridges around buildings and stuff. You know, and we weren't doing it with CGI. We were doing it with a whole different type of technology, and when we weren't on wires, we were, you know, we were shooting Zorn's optic vision, which was shooting VistaVision on VistaVision. We had a huge 70-foot screen that had pole arms that came through it, and body molds that we laid in that had movements up and down in different directions. And
oh, wow.
And they shot us into the picture.
Wow.
The picture was behind us, and they shot us into the picture. So
really,
it was long and tedious to do, but it worked fantastically.
I remember Sarah Douglas telling me you and her would have, when you guys were on like that, on the wires on the ceiling, she said you and her would have races across the ceiling of the soundstage. Do you remember this?
Oh, that was when we were in Stage K. Yeah, that's when we were shooting the when we were flying into the Daily Planet. We did that on a soundstage on wires.
Wow. And I heard that in the making of Superman by David Petro, you were in the Fortress of Solitude when the floor collapsed, when you were on a stalactite that collapsed?
Yeah, there were a few incidences of stuff that, you know, just accidents that happened, you know.
Wow.
Thank God nobody got hurt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but that's amazing, because in those two films, you worked on two of the biggest non-Star Wars movies of the 70s, you know?
Yeah, they were, I mean, Superman, you know, it's really sad, because if they would have done Superman the way they were supposed to, they were supposed to do like 10 of them, you know, and there would have been a much bigger epic for the fan base, and, you know, and Christopher would have been larger than life, because he was larger than life. I mean, they'll never find another Christopher Reeve, someone who will do Clark Kent and Superman as adequately as he did.
Wow.
I mean, he just did both roles so well, you know. The look, it was just, that was the best performance he ever did.
That's true. It's 39 years later, and you'll see reviews of Henry Cavill and Brandon Routh, and they're always comparing him to Christopher Reeve. Have you noticed that? And they're always coming up short, you know?
Yeah, because well, you know, they changed the costume. What they've done with Superman is really sad, because they've went darker and darker and darker, and that wasn't the, you know, you have to take into mind that Superman was the first American superhero.
Yes.
And to do it with the all-American way, and the fact that he would never watch people die, and he would go to any length to protect people. And they've taken that away. You know, they've made it so dark, and so we may come up with an idea for because of the hologram technology that's around today, and it's so adequately used, we could actually bring Christopher back and do another Superman in the fashion to what we were doing ours.
Wow, that would be amazing. That would be
awesome.
awesome.
The fan base would go crazy. It would be, I think it would work tremendously.
Jack, I have one question. Scott Essman here. When you were hired first to play Non, did you sign on for the two films when you signed on to play the character?
Yeah,
it was.
We shot both films at the same time.
But did you know? Remember, they added the Screen Actors Guild now has something called the Salkin Clause, because Charlton Heston thought he was making a 3.5-hour Three Musketeers movie, and then realized he'd been tricked, and he was making two Three Musketeer movies.
Well, they call it the Salkine Law. It's in the Guild, and what they did was that's a funny story. Raquel Welch woke up one morning. She was watching television, and they were advertising the Four Musketeers. And she called Ollie Reed up on the Isle of Jersey, and she said, "Ollie, did we make a film that I don't know about?" And Ollie said, "You know, I'm drunk every day, but I'm never that drunk. What are you talking about?" So what they did was they took footage that they had already shot, and then they grabbed one other actor, and they shot footage of another actor, and they put it into the footage, and they called it the Four Musketeers. In fact, we have a deal against Warner Brothers that's coming up, is because we signed on to do 2 films, and they've already done 4 films out of it. They did the Donner cut,
that's
and
right.
now they've got this other thing they released this Christmas with all kinds of footage that was never seen before.
The TV
So
footage, with the 4 hours. Wow.
Yeah, they're making another film, and they have no right to do that without paying you. I mean, they haven't paid us for any of that. So,
Jack, what did you
they've
think
got
of?
some problems with it.
That is amazing. No, but what did you think of the Donner cut, the Richard Donner Superman 2, which I actually
liked it much better. It was a much better cut.
It was
just sad that they didn't allow him to finish the movie, and all the reasons that they come up with as to why are all a bunch of bull. The Salkinds were notorious for cutting corners and doing things which they felt was saving them money, but they didn't care about the fan base. They didn't care about the films. They just were how much money they could steal, and stop and think about something. How do you cut Marlon Brando out of a picture when he already shot the footage that was there for Superman 2, but they cut him out because they didn't want to pay him the points? They cut Donner out because they didn't want to pay him, and they owed Richard Lester a picture, so they allowed. And we had already shot 86% of Superman 2, but they had to come back, and Lester had to reshoot over 60% of it to put his name on the screen as a director.
Oh no, really?
So they had to reshoot a lot of stuff under Lester's tutelage. So that left all that footage lying there that we had already shot, that they came back and they did the Donner cut 26 years later, Warner Brothers.
I heard Hackman refused to do a lot of the reshoots to get...
Hackman never came back.
Wow.
Hackman never worked for Lester. See, if Christopher would have stood up and said, if the Donner doesn't come back, I'm not coming back, then it would have changed the whole deal. Because if Donner would have finished 2, he would have done 3 and 4 and 5.
Wow.
It would have been a whole different. There would have been a whole different Superman series. You understand? Donner continued doing the comic books up until he still does them. Richard lived, ate, and breathed Superman. He loved it. He and Tom Mankiewicz.
You can tell,
were a great
boy.
team
You can
together.
tell. Wow. Do you have a favorite scene in the Superman movies?
Say it again?
Do you have a favorite scene in your Superman movies as the evil Kryptonian?
Wow. Geez, there were so many of them. I don't know. I thought that when I did the picture, they wanted me to do it as a deaf, like a mute, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jackie Gleason was a friend of mine, and he did a picture called Gigo, where he won an Oscar for playing a deaf dumb mute. And I said, boy, if I ever got an opportunity to do a film where I could do body language and facial expression, I would jump at it. And when Donner explained that because Nan was a brilliant scientist that they lobotomized.
Oh, I remember.
He was this huge, brutish person that, was trying to learn how to walk and talk and everything. So I said, this is a great opportunity because Terrence was this vicious general and Sarah was a man-eater. Somebody had to relate to the kids. So I did this brutish guy like a child, with childlike mannerisms. And when I was doing the shot, learning how to work my eyes.
You're burning the chickens. You're gleefully burning the chickens in the truck.
And, burning the hole through the wood in the truck, and it just and getting the joy of a child out of it with the child next to me. It worked.
My favorite scene, Superman, is Superman 2, with the guys all dressed in black and that one girl. And I don't think she was meant to be a sex symbol, but she was sexy.
Yeah,
and she lifted up that man lid, from the gutter, and she said, "Superman," and she threw it at him like, that's
Ursa. That was Sarah.
Yeah.
The frisbee.
Oh, you mean Superman. The manhole cover, yeah.
The manhole, yeah.
Sarah was Sarah's a gorgeous lady. And when we did Superman, I mean, she was a young girl. She was absolutely stunning.
Wow.
She looks the same height as General Zod.
Yeah.
Now, how tall are they?
And how tall are you, Jack?
Well, I'm 6'6", and we did some shots like when the mirror came down on us to take us out into space, and we had a couple shots where I had lifts inside my shoes, or the shoes were built up to make me even look taller, because Terrence is I guess around 6 foot, and Sarah is about 5'11", somewhere around there. Wow. So 5'10", 5'11". Sarah's a tall lady.
Now, I heard that Terrence hadn't acted in 10 years.
He was in the ashram or something?
Till he got the Superman role.
Terrence was probably one of the most brilliant young actors in England in his younger years, and then his brother was the manager of the Who, the group The Who.
That is amazing.
And so Terrence got all wrapped up in that sex, drugs, and rock and roll business.
Wow.
And then he did a picture called Blue. He got nominated for. He had an amazing look, and he was a brilliant actor. But he got caught up in a drug scene for a while, so he went to India and he got rolfed, and he cleaned his whole. He got very spiritual, and he cleaned up his whole life, and Superman was the first movie that he came back on. When he came back to England, he did Superman. He was a whole different. He was a whole different person. His whole body structure had changed. Terrence is an amazing actor, and he's such he's just a really neat person. Very, very spiritual person. Terrence is I like Terrence a lot. Terrence was a great experience working with him because he's such a dynamic actor. He really was very talented.
Now, Jack, is it true some of your movements that you and Sarah Douglas Ursa, do that he leads you guys in were movements Terrence picked up in an ashram? Did I read that correctly?
Say that one more time.
I heard Zod has that weird stylized way of moving around, hands and everything behind him.
The hand gestures, I noticed.
And Sarah Douglas told me that you guys would do his movements a minute after him because it was movements he picked up in the ashram that he was using in his performance.
Yeah, he was like I said, he was a very spiritual guy. Terrence did a picture. Have you ever seen Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
Yes.
It's a brilliant performance. I mean, he has a mannerism about him, which is terrific. He's a very, very talented guy.
Baz Luhrmann, right?
That was Baz Luhrmann, right, Jack? Yeah, I believe it was. Let me ask you also a question. Sarah told me a great story where the three of you are being sentenced to the Phantom Zone by Marlon Brando, and she said she's getting chills because the world's greatest actor, Marlon Brando, approaches her, and she can't wait. She's about to have a moment with Brando, and he sticks some of his lines to her face. Did he do that to you too?
Brando. It's a funny story. Brando and I became very good friends. He's a New York guy, and I had a very infamous father in New York, so he couldn't wait to meet me. And Mitchum had told me to go down and say hello to him because they had talked about me. And so Brandon and I became very close. And I was down on the set to watch him work because he was magic. Brando walked on a set, you could hear a pin drop. Wow. The guy was just that magical, And he was up doing a shot, and he had cue cards everywhere. I mean, there were wow. Cue cards up everywhere. So. And he did something that I never saw an actor do before. And he was doing a shot, and they had a malfunction in the camera, and they were going to stop and just reset the whole thing. And Marlon said, no. You fix the camera. And he turned around, and then he turned back into the shot to finish it. And, and it came off brilliantly. And so he came down off the set, and I said to him, I guess some people would be a little bit nervous asking you this, but what the hell? You know, what's with all the cue cards, man? Are you that bored with the industry that you have to have cue cards everywhere to, you know, to do your lines? No. He said, you know, you know, I started that with Mutiny on a Bounty because I didn't want to make it look like I had studied the script so much that, you know, I wanted to look like I was taking the words right out of the air. And I looked at him. I said, Marlon, give me a break. And he was a great actor, you know. And he ripped off a couple parables of Shakespeare, word for word. And he looked at me and he said, "That you must know word for word. This stuff, piece of cake."
Wow.
Oh man, that's something to learn from right there.
That's a great story.
He was a great individual. Marlon was a trip. He was had a lot of fun with Marlon. Marlon was a fun guy.
No,
But he was so talented. It was just, you know, and there was guys like, you know, I was very fortunate in my career to work with actors like that. And Robert Mitchum was another one who was magical.
you did Big Sleep with him, right?
Did Farewell, My Lovely.
Yes, that's right. That's right. With him and Charlotte Rampling, I believe, right?
That's correct. First picture I ever did. It was the first movie I ever did.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was the first movie I ever did, and Robert. In fact, that I found out later, it was Robert and I became very close. I found out later that he had seen a screen test that I did, and he said, "It's either that kid or I don't do the film."
Wow.
For the part of Moose Malloy, and he was he just took me by the hand and guided me through. He was a mentor for me in the industry. He arranged for us to go to work together in the same car. So
wow, you wouldn't meet him?
So he could talk to me and stuff. And I remember the very first day we ever went to work, you know, and they told me that Mitchum was coming to pick me up for work like at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we had to go all the way downtown in L.A. And I was staying at a hotel in West L.A. And they called me up from the desk downstairs. They said, your driver's here. And I said, okay, I'll be right down. And I come skipping through these glass doors off the pool, and there's Mitchum standing against the wall. No one even recognized him. He had dark glasses on. And I come down the steps, and he said, you rehearsed to yourself, what are you going to say to Robert Mitchum the first time you actually meet him, like person to person like that?
He
I had
came
met
to
him
pick
at a
you
fight.
up?
You know, so he's standing there, and I come down the steps, and he looked at me and he said, "This must be Jackie O."
Wow. Jackie O.
We got in the car, you know, and he told me stories. We laughed all the way down the way, and we got down on the set, and it was the first time I was ever on a movie set. And he said, get your monkey suit on. I'll meet you right over there. And we met at the bottom of a set of stairs. We were walking up into a shot, and he said to me, "Have you read that script there, young man?" I said, "Robert, I've read your role, my role, Charlotte Rampling's role, Harry Dean Stanton's role." I said, "John Ireland, I know the script backward and forward." He said, "That's very good. Now throw it in the trash." I said, "What?"
Oh man!
He said, do not let me catch you doing what everybody in this town does, acting. Just be yourself and put yourself into that role and walk down the street like it's you and own it." And I said, "Wow, man." So, and we did, I remember we did the very first shot that I ever did, the first scene I ever shot, fully shot. And when we got done, you know, and they started moving stuff around, and I said to him, "What's the deal here, man? What's going on?" He said, "You really don't know." I said, "Well, what am I asking you for?" He said, "That's it, kid." He said, "Next shot." I said, "Wow, man." I said, "That's all there is to this stuff?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Shit, I'm a star."
Wow.
that became a tagline of the movie, you know. Every time I turned around, we were done the very first day we worked. I had to shoot some shots that he was finished. So I had a couple shots, pickup shots that they were doing. And when I got done, I'm saying to myself, how the hell do I get home? Mitchum must have left. So where do I get a ride home here? And I said to the transportation people, where are the cars at? And the guy said, "Oh, we go right around the corner there. They're waiting for you over there." I said, "Okay." So I went, and there's Mitchum standing against the car, smoking a cigarette, talking to the driver.
Wow.
And I said, wow, man. I said, I thought you were already gone. And he said, well, I can't go home without the star now, can I?
Wow.
How
Good
cool.
imitation, by the way.
Yeah.
Was Melody?
He was just that original. He was that, he was just that great of an individual. He was a trip.
Was Melanie Griffith in Farewell My Lovely as well? I thought somebody made their debut in that film with you. Wow.
Not Stallone did.
That's right.
Stallone was in it. Yeah, Stallone had a small role in it, and in fact, Stallone came out from New York with a guy named Joe Spinelli, who brought a bunch of actors for fill-in roles, like small roles in the picture.
Right,
He made a deal
wow.
with the director, and Stallone was one of them. And Stallone was putting together the story of Rocky. So he sat there every day. He picked my brain about boxing.
Oh, that's right, because you were at Golden Gloves.
I was a world-ranked fighter, and,
Wow.
and I was from Philadelphia, and I was a gangster from Philadelphia. So he had never been to Philadelphia in his life, and he kept asking me all these stories, and I gave him a bunch of stories about the waterfront and everything else. And then I see the picture. He comes out and he writes, the character Rocky was a combination, I guess, of myself and Chuck Wepner. Chuck Wepner was the bleeder.
Yeah, the Bayonne bleeder. Wow.
And I was the gangster from Philadelphia.
Wow.
But so I used to laugh about that every once in a while. And Chuck Wepner winds up suing him, saying, "You stole my life," and I'm saying, "Stole your life." And I was the guy from Philadelphia. Then, I was the fighter from Philly, and he used the same gym that I trained in when I was in Philadelphia. And stuff.
Are you serious? That's your gym?
Oh yeah. And when they walked up those steps, that was we trained at a gym at Passyunk and Moore. And we had to walk up 3 floors to get to the gym upstairs.
Wow.
And he put Joe Spinell in the role
That's
of
right.
Gazzo in the main mobster in the movie, right?
Gazzo the mobster, who played the loan shark. Wow.
Well, that's because Spinell and he worked on several films in New York, when he started out. And Spinell did a job. He never offered. They were doing Rocky 3 or something, and they asked me if I wanted to do a role, and I went down to see him. He was at MGM, and I said, and he was like, he acted like he was 20 feet off the ground or something. I said, well, yo, man, what's the deal with you? He said, you gotta. I said, yeah, right. Take this pill and stick it. Didn't work out too well.
Well, Webner got a settlement out of him. Did you ever consider going for a settlement?
Well, for what? That's cheap publicity. I don't need that jazz.
No, you're better
God
than that.
bless him.
Yeah.
I've been waiting 41 years to ask you about the log scene in King Kong, which is my favorite scene. And when I saw it, I was 10, and I was terrified. And I thought, wow, they even did a more realistic scene than the 1933 log scene, which was obviously the stop motion puppet.
That was the last shot that we did on the film.
Oh wow!
That was the very
That's
last
amazing.
shot. And we shot that at the Esther Williams swimming pool in MGM Studios.
Which is also where they shot Hooper in the shark cage from Jaws.
Yeah.
The MGM, the mermaid tank. Wow.
And it was the last scene of the film because they went to New York to do all the stuff in New York, and we had to wait till they come back to shoot it. And I was offered to do a picture in the meantime, and I'm sorry that I didn't do it because I would have loved to have worked with Wilder. And it was a picture called Silver Streak.
Oh no!
Oh, yeah.
You were going to be the Richard Keel role in Silver Streak.
Yeah. Well, Richard Keel, they had offered me 5 pictures I turned down. Richard Keel did them all, and he became, it was his career for him. God bless him.
No,
Richard was a good guy. I like Richard.
Yeah, he was.
They came to me to do the Bond picture, and I turned the Bond picture down.
Because of
Silver
Superman.
Streak picture.
Well,
Yeah, because I was doing a picture called March or Die.
Oh, that was your Gene Hackman Soviet
Gene
war
Hackman,
prison movie.
Catherine Deneuve, and so we already signed to do that. It was the same director that directed Farewell, My Lovely.
Really?
So we were signed to do that picture down with Jerry Bruckheimer down in Spain, and so they called my agent called me and said the what you call it
De Laurentiis. King Kong?
No, the people from the Bond movies.
Oh yeah, broccoli.
Broccoli.
Yeah,
Chubby
Broccoli and his son. Broccoli and his son are sitting in my office, and they want to see you. They want you to do this picture, the Bond picture. And I said, that script that you sent me? He said, yeah. He said, they're sitting here, and they really want to talk to you. So I was around the corner in a restaurant with Robert Mitchum. It was his birthday, and he was getting shit-faced. And we were sitting there, and I said, oh, I got to go around the corner and at least say hello to these people. He said, well, do you really want to do that picture, kid? And I said, man, I don't like the role. I don't like the, I wasn't that crazy about doing characters like that. You understand? I wanted to do more of Victor McLaughlin type movies. And he said, well, what are you worried about? Just have another drink. Or just call him up and tell him forget about it.
Chris,
I said, well, I gotta be at least. I gotta at least go around the corner and say hello. He said, well, don't leave me sitting here too long. Some young ladies will pick me up and take me home.
That's what I love. You know, Jack. We have this. We had a guest named Steve Moriarty who knows all. He was good friends with the Mitchum brothers, and it's great hearing stories about Robert Mitchum from you and Steve and stuff that we're never going to hear anywhere else. You know.
Oh, Robert was one of the most unique. I'll tell you something about him. It was great. If Robert ate steak on the set, everybody ate steak.
Wow.
Robert was one of the most giving men. He was such a, and I found that most of the great actors were like that, and he taught me about the industry. He didn't try to teach me how to act. He taught me about the industry, and I remember coming off of Samuel Goldwyn Lot one day, and the editor grabbed me. And he said to me, you worked before, kid. And I said, no, this is my first picture. He said, well, I'm telling you something. I'm sitting here editing this picture. This guy was an Oscar-winning editor. He said, I'm sitting here editing this picture. He said, and your performance is outstanding. He said, you've got a hell of a career ahead of you. And I said, wow. So I get down to the set, and I grabbed Mitchum, and I said, wow, man. I told him what this guy told me. And I said, maybe I should go to UCLA and take some elocution lessons or something, for this acting business. And he looked at me and he laughed like hell, and he said, stick with me, kid, you'll fart through silk. He said, don't worry about a thing. He said,
you'll fart through silk.
Everything's going to go well. And he was that, that he said, they'll either ruin you or you'll ruin them. He said, keep doing what you're doing. Everything's well. And he was like that. He would just take it. And I found Jimmy Colburn to be like that, and Omar Sharif. Omar Sharif was a trip. I loved Sharif. Was a gas to work with. I did the Baltimore Bullet with him, and he was.
Oh, that's right. That's right. With
Omar was.
How was he offset?
Oh, Omar was a gambling degenerate. I mean, he's a poor guy.
Yeah.
But he was one of. This is a true story. He was one of the 4 best bridge players in the world.
No way.
In the world, man. I mean, and he played bridge for big money. But you had to have the money to sit down and play. You understand?
Yeah.
That got him in trouble one time because he sat down one time, didn't have the money, and he played and it was one of the days that he didn't win. And he had to work as a greeter in a casino in Paris to make up for the mistake.
Wow. Dr. Zhivago has the gun hand.
He was a great backgammon player, and he in fact the very first backgammon board game that was ever created was his. He created it.
No way. That's unbelievable.
When we did the Baltimore Bullet, they had every pool hustler in America was on that picture. Moscone was there. All the guys from Chicago, from Detroit. Every pool hustler in the country that had any name was on the picture. Well, they couldn't wait for Omar to get there because they wanted to play him backgammon for money. Yeah, and he comes on the set. We were sitting down talking to him. They were testing his makeup, and these guys surrounded him like sharks. Oh man, he said, we're waiting to see how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And he's looking at them. He's saying, fellas, I just got off an airplane. They're doing a little makeup check here. Wow, we were just thought maybe you'd like to play a little backgammon or something. And he said, well, let me just finish up what I'm doing here. And he looked over at me. He's laughing. He said, you believe these guys? I said, well, you got every hustler and gambling guy in the country here dying to meet you, and because they understand your obsession with backgammon. He said, come on, you got to watch this, Jack. This will be fun. So
I had no idea because we used to play backgammon. That was like one of my first fun games to play on the beach. Our parents would go and they would play gin rummy on the beach. We were racetrack kids, and the kids would play backgammon. I had no idea where that game came from.
He's sitting there. They had the board all set up and everything all ready to go, and they're saying to him, well, how much you want to play for? $50 a point? And Omar stood there for a second. He said, I thought you fellas wanted to play backgammon for some money. Said, how much you want to play for it? He said, well, how about $250 a point?
Okay, this is producer Dan. Just real quick, I got a call from across the pond. Jessica Lange, cool or bitch?
Jessica Lange, what?
Cool or a bitch is what someone from England asked our producer.
Jessica Lange was one of the most wonderful individuals that you ever want to meet in your life.
Because I'm a fan of hers.
Jessica Lange was, Jessie was wonderful. She's a lovely, lovely woman. Anybody that calls her a bitch, I'll smack in the mouth.
Yeah, all the way across to England.
And if Jack O'Halloran smacks you in the mouth, you stay smacked.
Yeah, you're gonna feel it.
She's that's a lady. I mean, the epitome of a lady. Jessica is a wonderful, wonderful woman.
And she's still beautiful.
Oh yeah, she was gorgeous. She was 28 years old when she did her first picture.
Was that
King Kong? Dancer.
What was Kong her first picture, Jack?
Kong was her first movie.
Wow. I didn't really. Didn't it say on the credit introducing, right? It said introducing Jessica Lange?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember that as a kid. Yeah.
No,
Jack, that was her first picture.
How? But finish your backgammon story. You know what I mean?
So he's playing. So they get ready, and these guys are all drooling. He said $250 a point. And they said, no problem, no problem. Well, I never saw anybody take 30 grand off of people faster than what he did.
Wow.
30 grand off a backgammon. That's some serious gambling.
They were spinning that cube. They were spinning the cube around, and like it was great. He just went around that board. I laughed. I said, and he's nudging me in the leg. I'm laughing like hell. And these guys kept throwing money. He just kept scooping it up. I said, wow.
He can make as much money gambling offset than playing in the pictures.
He was fun. He was a fun. I tell you, I was sitting having breakfast with him one morning, and we were in New Orleans, and the women were lined up outside of the restaurant waiting to say hello to him, to sign autographs and stuff.
Wow.
And we're sitting there eating breakfast, and I said to him, wow, man, you go through this bullshit every day? He said, man, he said, just hang around. He said, if you need a date, just hang around, Jack. He said, they come out of the woodwork.
He's a real lady killer.
I said, you handle this shit? Well, Mitchell was the same way. Mitchell was.
Oh,
yeah. Robert and I were, he did the big sleep when I was doing Superman in London. So he would never go out unless I went out walking with him because, the fans used to mob him and stuff because he was so loved over there. And I said to him, I said to him, man, well, and we were in Harrods. We stopped in Harrods because he had to get some flints for his lighters, and we were standing at this like little stand where they sold cigarettes and cigars and flints, and this woman came. All these women started surrounding him, and this one woman said, "Is it true what I heard about you? That your wife allows you to have affairs and all this stuff?" And Robert just sheepishly looked up and said, I don't know where you read such stuff like that. And this woman came out of nowhere with her leg hiked up in the air, charging at him, man. And I had to pull him out of the way, and she went right into the stand. And I grabbed her, and we ran out, and I took him out the side door, and we jumped in the cab. And I said, wow, man, is this bullshit happen to you all the time? He said, the sad part is, Jack, he said, why didn't they do it when I was younger, when I could do something about it?
Wow.
All right.
Well, Jackie was going to ask, did doing March or Die with Hackman lead to Superman?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were we were doing March or Die, and in fact, it was the same crew that worked David Tomlin and all the first ADs, second ADs. Most of the crew was from the March or Die crew, and we were
on Superman.
We were down in Spain, and we had a break because Hackman had fallen off a horse, and anyway, so they brought us up to London to meet Donner, and we met Richard Donner, and Donner asked me if I wanted to do the picture, and we discussed the character, and I said, "You got me, son." I said, I want to do this because I want the opportunity to do this, to be able to use body language and facial expressions and, make this thing work. And he said, "Yeah, right on, boy." He said, "That's great." So we, and we that was the start of this. So when we knew that we were going to do Superman right after that was done, after we finished with March or Die, we finished March or Die I think it was around March the 14th, and we started Superman March the 28th.
Wow, you literally went that quickly right into the next project.
I wanted to ask you.
I tell you a funny story. I was supposed, you ever see the Lindsay Wagner did Bionic Woman? Yeah, and so they called me up from Universal. I was home. I come home just to come home from London, and they called me up for Universal to do a double episode of the Bionic Woman, and the guy called my agent. My agent said the director wanted to meet me, and Meyer said, "Well, he doesn't read for roles. He'll come over and sit down with you, but he doesn't read for roles." And so the guy said, "No, they just want to meet him." And so I go over, and Lindsay wanted me to do the show. So I went over and I met the producer, and then the director came in, and the guy walked up and he said, "Hey, we said, hello, how are you?" He said, "Would you read for me?" So I had this script I was looking at, and so I read it like a magazine article. And he said, No. He said, "Would you read for me?" And I said, "Let me ask you a question. Did you like what I've done on the screen?" He said, "Oh, Farewell, My Lovely was a brilliant movie. So I thought your performance was unbelievable." And I said, "Well, let me say this to you." I said, "I'm not a monkey that you hold up a treat and I perform. If you like what I've done, you're asking me if I can do this role. I'll tell you, I'll do it better than anybody in this city." So, I said, "There's where we are." And I said, "Very nice meeting you. Take care. See you later." And he called my agent. He said, "He wouldn't read for me." And he said, "I told you, people, he doesn't read for people." So we figured out that's it. So I'm going to go to make arrangements to go to London and start Superman. And television, they always wait till the very last minute before they hire people, So they called my agent on the phone, and they said, "Okay, well, we want to arrange a schedule for Jack to come over for makeup and wardrobe." And Meyer said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "For the Bionic Woman. We would like him to do the double episode of the Bionic Woman." And he said, "Well," he said, "you're going to have a little bit of a wait." And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, he just went off to do a movie." And he said, "Well, what do you mean went off to? Well, he just went to England to do Superman." He said, "Well, how long is he going to be gone?" He said, "Probably a couple of years."
Wow.
So, Lindsay called me on the phone. She said, I said, "Lindsay, I went down to meet your guy." I said, "We would have worked it in, but these guys take the time." Sweet old. Oh, she was mad. She was mad as hell.
Was she mad at you?
Nice woman.
Was she mad at
Very
you?
nice woman. No, she was mad at the director. Lindsay was a really nice woman. She's a terrific actress. Nice person.
Wow.
How much time between King Kong and Superman? Did you shot those back to back? Because you saying you worked so long on King Kong.
We got done working on Kong on the 14th of March, and we went to work on Superman on the 28th.
Wow. I mean, Jack, when you look at the amount of work you crammed in such a short period, how was Hackman?
Gene was terrific. Gene's a good guy. He's really a good guy. I mean, I did a couple pictures with him back to back, and I like Gene. Gene was a good guy. He's an Illinois boy. He's a country boy.
And the making of Superman the movie by David Michael Petro, claimed he's the one who brought you up to Donner and said you got to have this guy. Is that true?
Yeah, we were doing March or Die together, and then when they brought us over to meet Donner, and Hackman said, there's your 9, and, you know, and Donner had already wanted to meet me to talk to me about the role, and Hackman said, "There's a guy that should do it." You know,
Wow.
he and I we were doing March or Die together, and it worked out very well. You know, it was sad. It was a great epic film that they did, and the director just got carried away with himself, and they did you know, it's very difficult to cut an hour and a half out of 4 hours of footage. You know, the television version of March or Die is really very good because
that's the one. The CBS late movie would show it once a month. That's where I caught it. Where, you know,
yeah, it's actually the television version is 4 hours long. It's two 2-hour sessions, and it shows all the, and it doesn't, you know, when you see the film version, it's like too many holes in it because they cut through the scenes to make it work for a film, and it was the very first English speaking part that Terrence Hill ever did.
Wow.
Terrence Hill was the Italian blonde haired blue eyed actor who still has a series running in Italy today.
Wow.
Terrence was a trip. He was
Right here.
You just cut off Jack.
What? Dan, you just cut off Jack.
You just cut off Jack.
When Lou Grade,
Oh, there we go.
when we did the film, Lou Grade, the producer, for Terrence Hill, they got $8 million alone out of Germany.
Wow.
Just because of Terrence
For the
Hill.
budget, because of Terrence Hill, who nobody knew over
Well,
here.
it was Terrence Hill, Gene Hackman, Catherine Deneuve, Max von Sydow, Ian Holm. We had a great cast. Marcel Pizzufi. There was a lot of great actors in that picture.
Speaking of great actors, we're at the 30-year anniversary of your Tom Mankiewicz Dragnet.
What a great picture. What a fun movie. God, we had a lot of fun. I mean, Danny Aykroyd. Dragnet's one of those pictures you could watch 50 times, and you still wouldn't get all the one-liners that Aykroyd threw out.
Wow.
You catch something different every time you watch it, huh?
You'll catch a line or something. You know, Danny was just, he walked around with an earplug in his ear of Jack Webb's voice, you know.
Really?
Talking. Yeah. And that was Tom Hanks' breakthrough movie. And, you know, it was, and it was we had another good cast. We had a great cast in that film. And we had a lot of fun doing it. It was just, it was a fun movie to do. We really had a lot of fun. It was a trip. And Tom Mankiewicz was a dear friend, you know, and he did a great job on that picture.
Isn't it true that Mankiewicz really ultimately wrote what we now know as the Superman script, even though it's credited to Mario Puzo?
Yeah.
Is that true?
He did.
And Leslie.
Puzo wrote a version of the script, and then Mankiewicz was a super. That's what I'm saying to you. If they would have let Donner finish 2, him and Mankiewicz would have done 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know, it would have been a whole different series. And he,
Wow.
Tom was into Superman like Richard was. They loved it. They thought it was brilliant. I mean, and you could. I mean, Donner made it come alive so great. And he was such a brilliant director. Richard Donner was an amazing director to work with, and he's a super person, but he was just an amazing director to work with. It was like working with Donner and working with Lester was like night and day, you know.
Hey, we have a King Kong co-star of yours who just called in. Do you remember Bertram Gibbs?
Oh God, yeah, good guy.
Can we have you guys all in at the same time?
He's called in. Dan, can you hook us up?
He's on.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Bertram.
Hey, how you doing?
Not bad, sir. Say hi to Jack O'Halloran, your old pal, as well as Scott Esman,
Hello.
Jeff Sargent, and Dan the Man Rupp, and myself.
And a jolly good morning to you.
Morning. Wow. Hey, what do you remember about doing King Kong with a jolly Jack O'Halloran?
Well, it was unfortunate I didn't see Jack at the time, but I was an extra.
Where's Jack? Oh, Dan, what's going on?
Oh, no. Yeah. We just lost Jack O'Halloran. Don't worry, keep talking.
Is Bertram on?
Bertram, are you still there?
Oh, no.
Where's Jack? Where's both of them? Can you get them both at the same time?
I tried, and I lost them at the same time.
Oh, no.
Crap. Get them back.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go.
All right, he's here.
Speak. Is that Jack or Bertram? Hello?
We're rudely interrupted.
We were. Thank God you're back.
Okay, Jack, are you there?
That's Jack right now.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank God. Oh, wow. Jack, you weren't hurt, were you?
Bert's a great guy. He's down in Texas, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a writer. He's a writer now, but he remembered doing King Kong with you. And when Bert calls back, we'll have you guys all on at the same time with our other special guest, Scott Essman.
Jack, when you look back at Kong now, do you have fond memories of making that picture? It's a controversial picture because the first King Kong was so beloved and so forth, and Dino De Laurentiis.
It was a great. Let me tell you, it was a great. I'll tell you, we had a great script.
Lorenzo
We had
Semple.
a great cast.
3
had a
Years of the
lousy
Condor.
director.
Flash Gordon. Batman. Go on, Jack. I'm sorry.
We had a great cast. We had a great script. You know, he had a producer who was willing to do what needed to be done, but the director was bad news.
Yeah, I interviewed Tanya Roberts, and she's had a terrible time working with him on Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. You know, she just...
Well, he's drunk. He was drunk all the time.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty much what she said.
That's not good.
You
He
know?
was drunk all the time.
Gillerman is still alive, I think. He lives in England.
Yeah, but
that's where he's from. But I mean, he did some. He did. You know, he used to do. He would bring a cooler. I mean, we were working in Hawaii. And it was hot as hell, right?
Right.
And he would bring a cooler down on the set, and it was full of beer. And he would drink these cold beers in front of this whole crew. You know,
he wouldn't offer any of you guys or anything?
he wouldn't offer to anybody anything. So what I did was one day we were going to work, and I told the guy, I said, pull over to that store over here. And I got like 7 cases of beer. And I took it down, and I gave it to the crew on the set. And Gillerman went crazy. He said, "What, you can't do something like that?" And I said, whoa, wait a minute. You're standing there drinking beer.
You cut him off again.
Hello?
Hello? Hang in there, Jack. Hello, Bertram. Are you there?
You're losing both of them. Let me call Bertram, and I'll hold him up to my mic.
Hang on. Jack, you cut off Jack mid-story. Get Jack back. You just cut him off mid-story.
We stopped when Gillerman brought beer.
Jack, are you there?
Yes, he's right here. Jeff, you have to do the
Jack,
board. He's
put
on
Jack
line 1.
Put Jack on line 1.
My computer's not working. It's not working.
Turn on line 1, though, Jack. Jeff, turn on line 1.
Mine is not working. It's a total different format than what yours is.
Line 1 and
Hello.
line 2 are on.
Okay, who do we got? Jack?
Well, you got
Jack? Get Jack back on. I'll call Bertram up on my phone.
Put him on speaker.
He's on.
That's okay.
Don't worry, you're still on.
We're still on the air.
We are.
Well, ask me a question while we're waiting.
Hey, Scott Diazman, how are you, sir?
Is this what Alexander Graham Bell felt like?
I'm so sorry, Bertram.
Bertram, okay, now where's Jack? Where the hell is Jack?
He's not yelling at you, Bertram. He's yelling at Dan the Man Rupp, our beloved producer.
I'm a producer.
Jeff,
I'm not an engineer.
Why don't I get Jack back on, and I'll send Bertram through my phone up to the microphone.
We've got both of them on. You have to do it on your board.
Okay, I got this one. Which one? Which auxiliary? Auxiliary?
No, it should be on your.
Jack and
I
Bertram.
can't work the goddamn computer.
Jack and Bertram, if you're on the line,
It's a
hang
different
up.
screen
Guys,
format than
keep
what's
it
on my
professional.
fucking screen.
You have.
I'm going to pour
to
acid in my
use
lap like
your-
Bell did. See what happens.
You what the hell? I mean, it's
Son of a bitch.
Which
man.
reminds me of my first marriage.
Look. Get.
hey,
Yeah, I got you.
keep it friendly, fellas. We're on the air.
This isn't how Graham Bell felt. This is how Nikolai Tesla felt
Yeah.
when he started.
Before or after Edison stole it from him?
Oh,
Way before.
giving me the peace signs, not doing shit, dude.
That's
That means line 2,
line
idiot.
2.
Line 2. I don't have anything access on this goddamn computer.
Okay, turn up line 2.
What?
How about if I just write this in?
Yeah, you are the writer here, Bertram.
Yeah, get the Pony Express in.
Look, this computer, this mouse is not clicking on the screen.
Okay. All right, hang in there, Bertram. Jack, are you there? We were hoping to finish your story.
If I click on it and if we lose everybody, then
No,
you know
here
what?
we go.
Look, get Jack. Look,
No, he's lost
Bert?
again.
Bert, well, Bert, do you want to talk about doing King Kong with us? You started out as an extra on the film.
Wait.
Line 2.
Bert, let me call you. Bert, call me on my phone, and I'll just put the phone up to the microphone. Get Jack back on right now.
Dan the man. That's,
Anybody?
hey, I just heard Jack. Jack?
Hello?
Hi, Bertram. How are you?
Oh, good. And you? How's it going? How's the wife and kids?
Look,
we lost Jack. Get Jack back on.
My Aunt Mickey is enjoying Ohio. Bertram, what did you do?
I'm gonna write a murder mystery around this one. Go ahead.
We'll know who did it. We'll know who was killed. Bertram, talk about doing King Kong with Jack O'Halloran.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, as I was saying, unfortunately I didn't have a chance to meet Jack at the time. I was doing the World Trade Center, the end piece for the movie.
Really?
And
you're one of the guys on the street.
Yes, I was I'm the hush puppy sticking out from the gorilla's leg. Yeah.
Wow, you would be in that scene with Corbin Burnson, who was then unknown, and Joe Piscopo, right?
Exactly.
Wow. Wow. What, now, was that
okay? I'm going to interrupt. Jeff, line 2.
What?
Line 2.
Line 2 where?
Hang on, Bertram.
How many lines do you have?
I'm telling you,
Don't
my
leave me, Bertram.
computer
We have
is
4
not
lines.
working. This is
My
a different
producer.
screen.
Hi, Jack. No, we got Jack as well. Jack, that was you, right? Jack? Oh,
Now we lost him again.
Look. Just get Jack. I'll take care of Bertram.
okay. Jack, are you there? So, Scott, how are you?
Get Jack back on. I'll get...
Someone's on line
Testing.
1.
1, 2, 3.
There's Bertram.
Yeah,
So,
try
go on,
to-
Bertram.
Bertram, do me a favor. Look, we're going to have to call one at a time. Get Jack back on. I'll put you on my phone.
Let's fight with the army we have instead of trying to get the army we want.
Bertram. Bert,
Yes.
call me on my phone. Hang up and call me on my phone, please.
Done and done.
All right, we'll see you in a minute, sir.
Right.
Richard Donner, when he came to my class, was really nice.
Donner came to your class.
Yeah, 6 months ago.
Did you show Superman or Lethal
No,
Weapon?
we showed Lady Hawk.
Wow. You got
line
Donner to
2.
come in.
Yeah.
All right.
He came in. He wanted to do it.
There you go.
We
Put
got
the
him.
man on speaker. Turn him up. Hey, welcome back, Bertram.
I haven't the slightest idea where I am.
Well, Bertram, you want to talk about doing the ending of King Kong?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, there's Jack. We got Jack as well. Jack, are you there?
Well, you guys are going to get a bad reputation hanging up on people.
I'm so sorry. That was a technical difficulty on behalf of Jeff Sargent and producer Dan the Man Rep. Hey, finish the story, though. You brought in 7 cases of beer, and Gellerman got mad at you?
Oh, yeah. I said, what are you going to do, fire me? Hey,
Wow.
But the crew thought it was wonderful.
Wow. 7 cases of beer. How was Jeff Bridges, by the way?
So what?
Did you like Jeff Bridges?
Oh, Jeffrey's terrific. Jeffrey's a wonderful actor. Another good actor.
Wow.
Jeffrey's a very talented young man. His whole family is, but Jeff was a pleasure working with. He really was.
How old was he on that film?
He was in his 30s.
Wow. It's an amazing movie. Also, Lorenzo Semple script as well, by the way. You know?
Oh, it was a great script. We had a great script. And it was a great cast. I mean, it just should have been, as good as the film was, it could have been a lot better had they had a different director.
Did you like Charles Grodin?
Charlie was fun. Charlie was a hoot. He's a hoot to work with.
Wow.
Charlie was starting to lose his hair. and they kept putting color on his scalp to make it look like he had a full head of hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And we'd be shooting the shot, and I would say to him, Charlie, you missed the spot. Where? Stop that camera!
Wow.
Charlie was he was a lot of fun to work with. Charlie was a fun guy. He's a funny guy.
I remember in the first movie I did a movie, a Charles Grodin movie called Beethoven 2. Every time the makeup, all you could see in the makeup chair was Charles Grodin's hair pinned to a styrofoam head.
Yeah, he was very methodical. He was very, very worried about showing bald spots on his head.
Wow. Now we have Bertram Gibbs on the line. Bertram, you want to talk about doing King Kong?
Hey there, yes. You know, I was, as I was saying, I was an extra during the final sequence at the World Trade Center. And it was a really weird and surreal experience. A buddy of mine who played in Dog Day Afternoon had got me the gig and said, hey, you want to come and get a couple hours work? Sure. So here I am standing in front of a 40-foot gorilla covered in horsehair. And all the lights and everything. And the first thing that the director at the time, or the assistant director, said was, do not talk to the actors. So I'm like, okay. So we had to break a couple of times for them to set up the shots. So I'm sitting there and I smoked a pipe at the time. And I'm just puffing away. And all of a sudden I hear behind me, hey, can I get a light? And it's Jeff Bridges. And I'm like, oh, hi.
I know.
And you know, and I remember his father from Sea Hunt, and off to the side was Jessica Lange wearing this really, really attractive silver gown, and off to the ones, and behind her was John Agar, who, being a movie fan, I remember from the old movies.
Right.
And Shirley Temple.
Wow. Oh, yeah, he beat Shirley Temple, unfortunately, but he did The Brain from Planet Arose, which is a great movie. Did you get in trouble for talking to them?
No. You know, the director was too busy pointing people to look up in shock and awe to see me talking to Bridges. And he was cool. You know, just asked me for a light. We talked about the movie itself, and actually I talked about his father for a few minutes, and then we had to go back to filming. But like I said, it was a very surreal, you know, because I'm in New York. Seeing a 40-foot gorilla, I think, topped the list of things to see.
I heard the people in the crowd stole one of Kong's eyes, and they kept yanking yak hair out of the giant animatronic.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I heard the people on the street when they shot the ending of the movie where Kong is dead in front of the World Trade Center. I heard one of the extras stole his eye, and a bunch of them stole a finger and parts of the mechanical. Is that true?
No, I don't think I wasn't there at that. I didn't happen to see that. All I saw was when I guess the biggest thing that drove the director crazy, or the 88 crazy, was when he said, cut, it's a wrap, and everybody just ran and grabbed handfuls of horsehair. So we're watching a 40-foot gorilla with bald spots, and I'm going to myself, well, I hope they don't have to do a reshoot.
Wow. That's hilarious.
I wish I met Jack at the time. You know, I wish I did, but you know, it was, like I said, it was a couple of nights of standing till about 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, standing in front of a gorilla with a little shocked look on my puss.
Now, Bertram, you're a writer now?
I'm sorry?
You're a writer now?
Yes. I write crime fiction. I have 2 books out right now, called Reflection from the Abyss and The First Thing We Do. And just to give myself a plug, it's written in a very cinematic format. So if anybody wants to make a movie of it, hey, give me a call. Because I'm a whore. Anyway,
By the way, say hi to Jack, Bertram. Say hi to Jack. He's on the line with you.
Hey, I wish I could hear you, but there's just too many echoes, and there we are.
That's tough. It's a tough deal.
Wow. But amazing, you guys working on this huge movie. You know what I mean? And the poster is so iconic. People remember Jerry Seinfeld putting the ape straddling both buildings. The late 90s Seinfeld show, Jerry Seinfeld had the poster on the wall of his apartment on the show. You know? That iconic.
That was the only time the monkey was all together at one time.
Really?
It was in New York, yeah.
The rest
the only time that they ever assembled the monkey all in one piece.
Wow, I did not know that. And Jack, did you know Rick Baker at all, who played the monkey?
I just saw Rick about a couple months ago. Rick's a really nice guy.
Wow. That is amazing. Now, you worked with when you're thrown into the chasm, which our other guest, Scott Essman, remembers as one of the more iconic scenes in the movie. You were working with a mechanical arm, right?
Yeah.
No, is it true?
Well, they had Rick. They shot a shot of Rick standing like the monkey with his arms around the thing, and then it was a mechanical arm that actually was shaking us off.
And Ed Lauder and Jeff Bridges both told me the arm was occasionally malfunctioning. Were you nervous when you were shooting the log scene?
No, because we weren't near the thing that much. You know, it was poor Jesse. Jesse was sitting in the palm in the hand when when they came down, the finger was like brushing over her hair, and the string in the finger broke, and it dropped on her head.
Wow!
She almost got hurt. You know, damn near got hurt pretty bad. It was always the hydraulic strings were breaking it a lot. They broke a lot of it. So that would be another day's wrap. You know.
What's amazing to me is the two movies you did that were so much work with hydraulic and animatronics. Now you've seen Superman and King Kong coming back again and again with CG, where the long days you had on set on both movies, you could do in seconds now with the flick of a button.
But it doesn't look the same, does it?
It doesn't. It lacks the verisimilitude of the Donner movie, you know?
Yeah, it just doesn't look I mean, the Superman film, the flying shots, and in fact, the fight scene that we did, yeah, when Warner Brothers, they were running over the Salkinds, finishing. They had to deliver Superman 1, so we had to stop shooting 2 because they were so engrossed in doing 2, they forgot to finish 1. So they had to stop. They had to stop doing 2 to go back and finish 1 because Warner Brothers wanted the print to show it. And in fact, Salkind got them for another, I think, 10 or 15 million. They said, well, you know, if you can't deliver this thing on time, maybe we don't pick up the option for Superman 2. And Salkind said, does that mean that we're free to bring other distributors in to look at the picture if you don't want to pick up the option? And Warner Brothers, being smart ass, yeah, right. You know, go ahead, think what you're going to do. So I was in the screening room. They filled the screening room at Pinewood, and they brought in all these other distributors, and they showed the fight scene of us doing the fight scene over the city, and Warner Brothers couldn't get the rubber bands off their money fast enough.
Wow.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in. This is producer Dan here, but like all good things have to come to an end.
Okay.
It's only 8:30.
No, I know it is, but we only have till 9. We have a guest in studio.
Yes.
Who we really have.
Well, hold on. Yeah, don't worry.
He's along for the ride.
I wanted Jeff. Let me ask you, Jack, one more question though. One of the more iconic questions about you, Jack, is when checks were bouncing, you were the only one paying on Superman on time. You want to tell us the Pierre Spengler story?
Well, that's got to be a story. So of course you can't tune out now.
That was a great story. We were working about 8 weeks, and it was like raining all the time. It was very dismal, and so I was putting together. I had written a script called The Informer, which is called Ballad of a Simple Man. And I was getting ready to go back to L.A. to take care of some business on it. So I did something you're not supposed to do. I jumped on a plane, and you're supposed to tell everybody you're leaving because, God forbid, something should happen to you, and you're a lead character in a film, you've got to protect the film. So, but I jumped on a plane and flew to L.A., and I got to Los Angeles, and I'll never forget, I was in Beverly Hills, and there were no cell phones in those days. So I go to the payphone, and I call my accountant. And I said, okay, I'm in town. I want to take care of some business while I'm here. How much money do we have in the bank? And she said, we have a lot of checks in the bank, Jack, but then none of them have cleared. I said, what are you talking about? So I hung the phone up, and I called collect to Pinewood. And Pierce Spangler picked up the phone. He said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Los Angeles. What? Los Angeles? He said, you got to be on set Monday. What are you doing? I said, well, I had this problem. I said, my doctor tells me I got this spasm in my back, and then I'm probably going to have to lay out on the beach in the sun to relieve it until I get some money in my bank account. He said, what? I said, I got no money in my bank account. I got a bunch of checks from you people, but no money.
Because the checks are bouncing.
Blah, 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 blah. So he said, hold on. So and he came back on the phone. He said, everything's taken care of. Get on a plane. You got to come home. I said, well, when the bank tells me there's money there, I'll be on a plane. So I hang the phone up, and I called my accountant about an hour later. She said, well, whatever they did, they put money in the bank. And I said, okay. So at that time, they had a plane that left at 12 o'clock in the daytime and got you to London at 7 in the morning. So I got to London on Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I went right to the studio. And I went up to Pierce Spangler's office.
In full costume, right? I heard you were in your Zod, you're in your General Non costume.
No, I was dressed. I was dressed in civil clothes. So I went up to the office, Spangler's office, and Trudy was a sweetheart. And I said, listen, honey, I just come off of a plane, and would you go get me something to drink? And because he was just coming back from France, he had to go explain to Salkind why he sent this money. And he comes in his office, and I'm sitting down across from him, and I said, we have a bit of a problem here. I said, I signed a contract to work, and you signed a contract to pay me for working. And I don't know whether you know anything about me. I said, but you better pick up a phone and ask some people. And I reached across the desk, and I pulled him across the desk, and I said, because I'll tell you something, sonny boy. I work, you pay me. If you don't, you're getting ready to go to my backyard in New York to shoot. I'll drop you in the harbor with a camera on your head. I dropped him back in his seat, and he said, you're threatening me. I said, no. I'm promising you. Get it right.
Wow. But he told us.
And I was the only one. After that, we never had a problem getting paid.
Wow.
And he was nuts enough to tell that story when they wrote the book about the making of Superman.
Yeah, he mentioned you pulled him over you pulled him over his big oak desk with one arm.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa. I said, it's and I dropped him back in his seat, and we parted friends, and I never had a problem after that.
Jack, you're wonderful. Thank you so much for doing the show, and happy anniversary of King Kong and Superman this week, good sir.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll see you at San Diego Comic-Con.
We will.
40th anniversary.
The 40th anniversary is next year, man. You're going, right?
Well, if they ask us to go, we'll go probably.
Good. Hey, my love to Sarah, and we'll talk to you soon, good sir.
Take care, man. Be well.
Right. Thank you, Jack. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And we have our other phone guest, Bertram Gibbs, who's about to tell us one more story about being on the street in King Kong. Bertram, tell us the story about doing King Kong. Tell us something nobody would know.
Well, the only other story was when I was sitting around or standing around Bridges, Lang, and Agar, is that I started talking to John Agar about the old movies from the 40s and 50s, and he was just amazed that I remembered them or anyone knew them. And you know, it was, like I said, it was a very, very pleasant time. They're very good people. Bridges was very cool. Wang looked sort of shell shocked by everything. Even in an interview, she said she over screamed like Fay Ray.
She outscreamed Fay Ray. Wow.
But like I said, it was a wonderful time. Surreal, but wonderful.
Bertram, and your 2 books are out. Give us the names and where people can follow your adventures on Facebook.
Okay, just look up Bertram Gibbs on Facebook. I'm at Gibbs714 on Twitter, and you can get my books on Amazon.com.
Beautiful, Bertram. Thank you for the King Kong stories on this. Today, the film's 41st anniversary. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You have a good day.
You're coming back, by the way. You're coming back. You got more to tell.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, sorry about the
phones are just
the unprofessional.
chaotic.
Like I said, we're just a bunch of we're just trying to do this by ourselves. We have no engineer or intern, and we're in a real studio, and there's like so many controls here, man.
No problem. I have your address. I'll send you a new ball of twine and some cans.
Oh, no need to be mean, Bertram. Thank you, brother.
That hurt.
Oh, you did.
Right to the gut.
All right, smartass. Have a very good day, and thank you again, Mr. G.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bertram. Bye. And now, to quote Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, through the process of elimination, Scott Essman has to be the killer. Scotty, welcome back.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me out.
Now, you went to USC with Bryan Singer and some other cats, right? To bring you the full Superman circle.
Yeah,
with Superman Returns director Bryan Singer.
Yeah.
Who else was in your class? Give us some of the heavyweights.
Well, you know what's funny is at that time at USC, it was a very creative period, but we didn't know it until later. They would bring stand-up comedy professionals from the industry, from the Laugh Factory and from the Comedy Store and so forth. The Improv, Bud Friedman's Improv.
Wow.
And they would do comedy shows on campus. And every time they would do a comedy show, a student would host the show. And he would do a little stand-up himself, and he would introduce the comedian every single time. That was Judd Apatow.
That was Judd Apatow.
Judd Apatow. It's a true story. Isn't that weird?
What's weird is I went to our friend Sheena Metal hosts a show at one of the comedy stores, the comedy Laugh Stop or something.
Uh-huh.
And her show didn't start till 9, and I got bored, because nobody was there, and because I was being interviewed, so I hopped into another room, and sure enough, Judd Apatow came charging out to do some stand-up to get into it.
Yeah.
And when Judd Apatow came out, the hostess, I think she might have been a little drunk, she comes out and she goes, "We got us the director of Wreck Train." And Trainwreck at the time was the #1 movie in the country. And you could tell Apatow was sort of angry that she didn't even bother getting the name of the movie
right.
And he goes, "Hey, you got the name of the movie wrong. You got my name wrong." He goes, "You're going to go far in this town." And I mean, the audience, she didn't give a damn. She didn't know who he was, didn't care. But the audience realized she accidentally committed career suicide. So you went to school with Judd Apatow.
Judd Apatow, yeah.
Nice guy?
And I would show up, he'd go, "Oh, there's one of those guys who's always at these comedy shows and so forth." And I performed one. In '88, I performed stand-up comedy. And you know what's funny? That day, another one of the comedians who performed was Mark Christopher Lawrence, who was my classmate. And he's the guy who Arnold Schwarzenegger pulls off of Linda Hamilton and throws him into the wall in Terminator 2.
Wow, he's one of the orderlies.
One of the orderlies.
Wow.
And she's escaping, and he's the African-American guy.
Wow,
In the credits, it says Burly or Orderly.
Burly Orderly.
That was Marcus for Lawrence. And he got into some beer commercials. He was doing stuff in some other features. And Bryan Singer, Bryan's in a little bit of trouble right now.
What? You're kidding me. For what?
Well, actually, no. For charges being made against him by, And they're taking he supposedly is the one who asked him to take his name off the building in SC. That's from the Hollywood Reporter. He said until it blows over, he asked them to take his name off.
He asked them, and they didn't do it.
That's the Beastmaster, isn't it?
No, that's the Beastmaster's adopted cousin.
Oh, it's a cousin. They're both
In fact,
related.
My article.
Oh, Bryan Singer, the producer.
Bryan Singer, the director of X-Men. Mark Singer is the Beastmaster.
Oh, Mark Singer.
Yeah, because
Singer.
the first article to mention the connection between Bryan Singer and Mark Singer was mine in
really?
Starlog.
Oh, that's cool.
And Bryan Singer goes, "Oh, can I have this? I'm going to show my mom."
Yeah, there's allegations. Hey, look, innocent till proven guilty, right?
Right.
We have due process
Free
here.
country.
But there's some serious allegations, let's just say. And yeah, the USC, there was some controversy where he was part of the critical studies program, and his name isn't on it now. So there's serious. Hey, look, it's happening everywhere, right? There's
Yes,
serious
it's
allegations against Kevin Spacey, who's Bryan Singer's friend.
Oh,
and
that's
was
right.
In The Usual Suspects and played Lex Luthor
But,
in
yeah,
Superman
bring it full
Returns.
circle. Woohoo! Wow.
And Spacey's his good friend, and Spacey credits Bryan Singer with launching his career.
Yeah, because
He had
Spacey
been knocking around for years.
He'd been a TV guy. He was
small parts.
Nobody remembers him as the henchman in the Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder comedy "See No Evil, Hear No Evil."
He's the henchman in that.
Yeah.
And then, he's got little parts in this and that, and finally he's in The Usual Suspects.
And then he's Kevin Spacey, capital S.
He wins an Oscar for that role.
Although he did cut in front of me in the beer line for K-Pac's rap party, which I'll never forgive him for.
But that did launch his career for sure. And Bryan was one of those guys who you always thought he was on drugs because he was so hyperactive and talking a mile a minute. And I'm going to do this movie and that movie. And you'd go, yeah. And sure enough, he makes this movie, Usual Suspects. A good 6-7 years after school, he made the movie. But he was on the cover of the LA Times because there was so much hype about this movie, even though it hadn't been released yet. That was made totally independently with foreign financing.
Man, that was such a great script. I mean, it was
well,
so clever.
Christopher McQuarrie went to school with you as well, right? The writer of Usual Suspects.
And he won an Oscar for that script.
Yes,
Best original screenplay, Chris McQuarrie. And it launched his career.
That total ending was great.
Christopher McQuarrie went to SC with you as well, right?
Yeah, I didn't know him at the time. And so did the editor and composer for Usual Suspects.
The editor and the composer are the same guy. Not Goldenthal. It was
John Ottman.
John Ottman. Great name, too.
And he's a great composer, and he's probably even a better editor. And he told me because of Usual Suspects, he got offers pouring in to edit films, but he wouldn't take them because he really wants to be a composer.
Wow.
So
Seriously?
He was turning down big movies from big studios. He told me because they wouldn't let him write the score, they just wanted him to edit. And his not an official deal, but his understanding is, I'll edit your movie if you let me write the score. And they didn't let him do both, so he turned down big movies. But eventually he got to do a lot of great stuff.
But he does the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. I love that he does the music and the editing. It's one of those things like he's going to be one of those hyphenates that people remember. Who the hell edits the movie and scores it?
Writes the score, not really anybody, right?
That's an odd combo, right?
But
there.
while he's cutting the movie in his head, he's also composing it, which is amazing.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, huh? And the music for Usual Suspects is very good. I think it could have won an Oscar for editing too, because it's brilliantly edited. Especially as Jeff was saying, that ending is so well edited, where you're hearing and seeing all these clues to the mystery in one big montage.
And those Ottman stingers, when you see the cup slowly going into the floor,
that's right.
Ottman puts in the stingers.
I was so scared of Kaiser Sose.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize till, hey.
It really is a great movie. You know what's funny, though? Singer did that. He did Superman. He did Valkyrie. He did Apt Pupil.
Oh, that's right. That's right. People forget he did that, yeah.
His friend Ian McKellen, who he then cast in the
Magneto,
X-Men movies. Right. And here's the thing. It's like, if you look through Bryan's career, there's these films with critical acclaim, like Valkyrie and certainly Usual Suspects. He discovered Hugh Jackman for American audiences in X-Men, and I argue that the first X-Men's strength is Hugh Jackman is so amazing. And who is this guy? I've never seen him before.
And he got him because the other guy screwed up. The other guy's schedule overlapped in Mission Impossible 2. What was the name of the original Wolverine?
Glenn Danzig. I think he was the first Wolverine.
No, but
Don't say that name.
yeah, do not say that name on this station, sir. No, but remember,
I'll get him in here.
The bad guy from Mission Impossible 2 was Singer's first choice for Wolverine. His schedule overlapped on between X-Men and Mission Impossible 2. Singer went with his number 2 choice, and he made Hugh Jackman a worldwide star.
Yeah. And that launched that X-Men franchise. And the last I heard, because of the fact that Singer produced the X-Men's and he's directed several of them, $100 million in the bank.
Jackman?
No, it's Bryan Singer.
Wow, by the way, wow.
Just on the basis of the fact that he launched that. Because if you look at his non-X-Men films, not a lot of huge hits there.
No, usually topping out at 30 to 40 million.
Yeah, not a lot of big hits. But the X-Men franchise, just alone, how many X-Men films have there been?
And spin-offs.
Including the spin-offs like
Deadpool
Logan and
is
Wolverine and so forth.
But Scott, Deadpool is the highest grossing X-Men movie of all, right?
Is that right?
And that's 17 years into the franchise.
It's amazing, isn't it? You're right, 17 years.
17 years already?
Yeah.
And it's R-rated, which is even more amazing.
Marvel's first R-rated superhero movie.
Until, actually, not true. That would be Blade. Blade was Marvel's first R. And before Bryan Singer's X-Men, Bryan Singer's X-Men is usually given credit as the first movie to start the Marvel Age of movies. Ironically, it was Blade, I think, in 98, which was the first Marvel movie to come out and show a viability of making money, But if you look at the first Blade, Stephen Norrington, written by the great David Goyer, David Goyer, who used to be Davy Goyer at the Ann Arbor comic shop Eye of Igmato in Ann Arbor, Michigan, his script for... I did his first cover story before anything had been produced after reading the Blade script. Goyer, the amazing thing about Goyer, I thought this script is going to be huge. So I would go to the San Diego Comic-Con. I would go to different 50-cent bins. That's where the comics nobody wanted would wind up at the 50-cent bin. Jeff, you remember this?
Yes, I do.
I would go around picking up Tomb of Dracula 10s in mint condition out of a 50-cent bin. First appearance of Blade, very quietly sitting on them. The movies have come out. I just sold one of them out of storage for $100. I mean, I just would go to 50-cent bin to 50-cent bin knowing when this movie explodes, it's going to be huge, and it was.
And then Goyer directed, I believe, Blade Trinity, the one with Jessica Biel.
Which was the first time Ryan Reynolds played a comic book superhero when he played Hannibal King, Vampire Detective.
And Blade Trinity.
Yes.
You want to hear another great USC story?
I demand another great USC story out of you.
So Bryan Singer, the pesky guy.
He couldn't get in the film program.
Yeah, that's right.
He was what do you do? What do you call it when you're studying plants?
Critical studies major, but botany?
Yeah, he started out, he got in for botany.
Botanical.
And he told me this. He got in for botany and then critical studies, trying to working his way into the film program.
Yeah, and then he became critical studies major and so forth. But he was the pest. Mark Christopher Lawrence was the comedian and became a notable actor in the 90s. Burly Orderly. And
from Cameron, by the way, that's amazing.
That's right. And Judd Apatow was the host of the comedy shows. He would always be hanging around. Then there was the camera department at SC Film School, and my teacher in '87 in the camera department was this super nice guy, very well spoken, very quiet, but really knew his stuff, and was really encouraging to us about getting in the industry and making films, and this is what you need to do. He'd never raised his voice. It was Mr. Jay Roach. That's a true story.
No,
I worked with him.
Jay Roach, the director of Austin Powers?
Yes.
And more importantly, the guy who married the hottest member of the Bengals.
Yes.
Wow.
Susanna Hoff.
Yeah.
Is his wife.
Jay Roach, I worked on a whole month on a film with him about with Bryan Cranston and
the LBJ film?
Yes, I worked on that all month with him.
All the way.
He all the way. He was a great guy to work with.
That's a great film. He made the Recount movie with Kevin Spacey, the Florida Recount. And then he made the Trumbo movie. I think it's just called Trumbo, about the screenwriter Dalton Trumbo with the fellow that you just mentioned, Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
He made those for HBO, right? So
yeah,
LBJ And I think the Trumbo movie, they were both HBO films. Very good films.
It was great. I talked to Cranston and Frank Langella together. We were in the House of Representatives, and I went up and I went to Frank Langella and I said, "Man, your role as Skeletor was so badass in the costume." And he got up.
He said, "Dear boy, never talk to me again."
And no, he shook my hand. He's all, "No one's ever said that to me." He's going, "Thank you. Thank you. That's a great compliment." And Brian Cranston goes like, "What's He-Man? What's He-Man?" I'm like, "You never heard of He-Man? The toys? He-Man? Masters of the Universe?" And no, I have no idea what that
I don't
is.
know what that is. He-Man, 30th anniversary.
30th
of
anniversary.
the Masters of the Universe movie.
If you want to see,
That's Courtney Cox's first movie.
Yeah,
Besides,
this is true. After the Dance in the Dark video, two things about He-Man come immediately to mind. One, 87 was also the year of the Whittier earthquake.
Oh yeah.
So
October.
Yes.
Right before the stock market crashed.
Right around when the movie came out.
LA had a huge earthquake. That's right.
If you want to see old Whittier with these great, beautiful classic buildings, another guy unfortunately in trouble, Gary Goddard, director of He-Man.
I also
yeah, for the same
that 87, right? Oh my God, I got a girl pregnant in 87.
She'd be 30.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Actually, yes, he is 30.
April 11th.
It's a boy.
Douglas,
Huh?
It's a boy.
Douglas.
All right, I got a question for you, Scott. Real quick.
From.
Okay, this is just my question to you.
Sure.
You've obviously done stand-up. You've done acting. What is the most, for me?
Worn prosthetics before. I was made up as the guy from Up.
Isn't that
with a
amazing?
full
We've
prosthetic.
both been in the Berman's makeup
Bermans.
chairs.
Oh man, wait, that was you?
That was me.
Dude, that was so. It's so weird and like almost creepy when you see an animated figure come to life. Exactly like a CG.
That was
When
me.
the CG steps off the screen, that makeup. I was so impressed with that when I stalked your page.
That was me. And
That
then,
was great makeup. Oh my God.
I'm doing a walk around thing because after they did the makeup, they said, "Well, walk
Isn't
around
that-
as the
isn't
character."
That
and
great?
all
You
that.
walk around Monster Palooza in costume.
That's right. And then at the last minute, before I was about to get out of makeup, I come to Cassandra Peterson's booth, and she's got a line out the door. She's not made up as Elvira, though. She's just herself.
So it's a cash run.
And she looks at me, and I look at her, and I go, "Can we get a picture?" And she goes, "Oh, sure, what the hell?" And we did this photo, and it came out beautifully. It's one of my favorite all-time photos. And she's still gorgeous.
Isn't that amazing? She is still hot. You know?
She's got to be Cassandra at this point. She's got to be.
60s.
Yeah, I was going to say
Remember,
pushing 70.
as a groupie, she had sex with Elvis and Tom Jones.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's a great book on groupies,
Oh, huh?
and she describes a story about Tom Jones being so big he tore her up. She had to go to the emergency room.
Really?
It's crass, but she tells it.
I will refrain from commenting on that.
Yeah.
But to answer the original question, performing in a makeup or doing stand-up or being up in front of a class or holding a seminar to me isn't stressful. I don't know why, but I'm in my element when I'm doing that, when I'm performing or leading a class or leading a group. To me, it's stressful when you're on your own and you're alone and you're sitting there and you don't have any people to talk to. That I don't like the alone time. Isn't that bizarre?
It is. It's intriguing.
It's the opposite of the way you'd think. Because
That's the same for me. I mean,
that right?
that's why I go to my AA classes, because I could go and I could speak. But when I'm sitting there by myself watching TV, I'm like, okay, I want a beer.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, the alone downtime. I think it's one of the reasons that rock and roll musicians resort to drugs, because when you're on stage in front of 20,000 people and they're all up on their feet and they're screaming and they're yelling and their hands are in the air and you're performing, it's such a rush. And as soon as you go off stage, you go into a van, you're whisked off, a key goes into a door, you go into a hotel room, and then you're just sitting there. Wow. And it's such an abnormal off-stage feeling once you've been jolted by just imagine being Axl Rose. You got 20,000 people, and they're at your every whim, at your every beck and call. They'll do what you want. Raise your hands, clap your hands, and for 2.5 hours you're performing, and then all of a sudden you're alone in a hotel room. And I think that's why,
so many of them turn to substance.
They turn to substance abuse or alcohol abuse just to make them feel normal or just different than that alone time, which to me is still, and I'm 51 years old. It's still a struggle for me to be alone with nothing to do except TV and my dogs. That's the hard part.
I've been to your house. Your dogs are great.
Oh yeah, you've seen my dog.
Your house is beautiful too.
Scott, we have new comics on Wednesdays.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. If you go into your local comic store.
Were you a comic book reader, Scott?
Yeah, oh sure, yeah. I remember having we were talking about Superman earlier, the Superman comic in the 70s that came with a record.
Wow, yeah.
Do you guys remember that? And you'd put on the record.
Bullets,
I saw a record player earlier over there.
The Living Bullets.
You put the record on, and the Superman down the roof of the house, and you'd hear and you'd see the whoosh in the comic book, and then you'd hear it on the record. I thought that was the greatest thing ever.
That was a cool thing to
record
have,
that would coordinate with a Superman comic. That to me was great.
Yeah, no, I remember Mad Magazine would give out free little vinyls that were like all.
Yeah, there were sound sheets.
Yeah,
remember they had Gull in the family with Starchy.
Yeah, exactly.
And Meathead, Meatball.
And they were a page, weren't they? A page in the magazine.
Yeah, it was a page. You could just pull it out.
Yeah,
Evertone sound sheet.
When Bryan Singer was at SC, he had a roommate, Steve from Boulder. And Steve from Boulder was writing a Batman script. And I remember Bryan Singer had advised him, you know what? Just write it as a Batman type character and try to interest the studio with your writing because you don't own Batman. And the guy blew off Bryan Singer and said, no, it must be Batman.
Is that right? Is that true?
Free advice, yes. Free advice from a future Marvel director and Superman director.
We didn't know at the time. It's like Bryan Singer and Judd Apatow and Jay Roach. These are all like, major players in the industry now. And in the 80s, they were just your classmate or your teacher or whatever. Oh, here's another fun one. The guy who drew the comic, the USC newspaper was called the Daily Trojan. And the guy who drew the... Yeah.
I think of rubbers, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Tommy Trojan.
Yeah, right. And he drew the comic called Ya Dude, and it made fun of like the preppy SoCal 80s, like Valley, fraternity boy. It was ruthless too. It was really vicious. And he drew this comic, Ya Dude.
Okay, I got a
He's
question.
under the name.
Let me finish.
Excuse me. He's under the name in the comic. It was Gordon Gary, and now that same guy is Gordon Tokamatsu. His real name. And he's a field correspondent for the NBC Nightly News here in L.A. He does all those. That's him. He does all the field reporting, right? If there's a fire or there's a traffic situation or a fire, he does the field reporting in the field always. He's never in the studio as an anchor. He's a field reporter on air.
Before you ask, Dan, I wanted to ask you, how the hell did you get Richard Donner to come out to Laverne to talk to your students?
You know what? You never know. Hollywood is such a crapshoot. You never know who's going to say yes. Isn't that true? I'm sure you've had that experience. Like you can ask 100 people to come visit a class, and you'll get people who don't even answer. You'll get people who say no. You'll get people who say, well, maybe, but, and then they find out where it is. Oh, it's too far. Forget it. And then once in a while, a Richard Donner says yes, and you order an Uber, and it picks him up in the way above the hills above Beverly Hills, and he comes down to your class, and there he is. There's Richard Donner. And you've got him. You've got him for 2 hours.
Wow,
and
amazing!
You interview him. You ask him about everything, and the best compliment he could give me, and I'm sure you, Pat, you're in the same situation. Jeff, maybe too. Is I said, "Did you like it when we were all finished?" And he says, "I loved it." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "You asked good questions." And that to me is the best possible compliment you could give someone who's leading a panel or a discussion group or an interview.
When I've sat in, when you had guests that just blew my mind, I'm thinking they're 10 minutes away. I've got to go. I wanted to do Mel Stewart, but I had that callback that day, and I later booked it. But what I was going to ask is, what amazed me is you have them come in. You're showing some one of the work. I was so impressed when Landis sat in the movie because not only catching Landis, but catching an American Werewolf on a big screen. And you ask great questions. The kids ask innocent questions, not knowing any of the history of the movie.
Innocent.
You said something that made me, I almost vomited with horror the other day. Your incoming class, tell us that quote you posted on your Facebook page.
You got to remind me. I don't remember which one it was.
Your incoming class only knows Instagram and Snapchat, and they consider Facebook for old people.
My student, my freshman class, who are By now they're 18, but they were 17 turning 18 when I started with them. They don't use Facebook. And I said, why? And they said, well, it's for older people.
It's
Are you
MySpace.
serious?
That's
You
what
gotta
they
be
said.
kidding me.
That's what they said. And then I asked the class of 18 how many use it, and one hand went up, like sort of, kind of.
Sheepishly.
17 others said no. And Dan, you had a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we
go for it,
we
sir.
didn't get to yours.
Oh, just real quick.
Yeah.
I had a question from, this is actually from Ventura, from one of my
Sure.
friends. They want to know, are you SoCal born? Are you,
Oh, good
did you,
question, actually.
born somewhere else?
Give
in
us your origin story, Scott
you know,
Esmond.
what's your origin?
I was born on Long Island, New
Long
York.
Island.
Wow.
And,
Long Island?
Not too far from
That's
the,
where they make iced tea.
not too far from the Amityville Horror House, right?
the Amityville Horror House was like 20 minutes from where I grew up.
Wow.
Yep. And it's still there, and it's
Did you go?
it's
Did you go
scary.
right as a kid?
Yeah, but you don't go close to it because you're scared.
Wow.
I don't want to go near it.
You
so-
remember though? They've remodeled it since, but it was back when the chimney, the nose, and the window eyes, right?
Yeah, and what's funny is, you know what? That whole area of Long Island is really beautiful. It's like the South Shore, you know, it's really scenic and pretty, and a lot of boating happens there. So it's one of the nicer parts of the island. I was in the north part of the island.
You saw the Amityville Horror House.
You know what I was even closer to? The birthplace and home of, actually not the birthplace, but the childhood home of Billy Joel, the singer-songwriter.
Really?
Oh, we're talking like 10 minutes, 15 max from where I live.
2 minutes to break to end of the show.
Oh,
It's
Scotty,
time to plug Scott
Plug
Esmond.
Scott Esmond. Plug
Professor.
away.
Professor.
Professor Esmond. Plug
Professor
away.
Scott Esmond.
What do you got coming up? Give us sites people can follow to keep up with your adventures.
Well, Visionary Cinema is my company, so visionarycinema.com has a lot of my articles and events and things that we've done, and some of the films that I've made, and interviews like that. And most of my interviews now go on Below the Line News. I've done hundreds of them at this point. Below the Line News is just btlnews.com. So a lot of my stuff is on there too, and visionarycinema.com. And I've been doing it a long time. At this point, let's see, 95 is when I started in full interview. You know what I started doing? Interviewing makeup people. That was my first thing. So I wanted to interview Tom Berman, and I wanted to interview
Great guy.
Rick
Did my
Baker.
first live cast, Tom Berman.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I wanted to interview all these guys, and there's only one now that I've never interviewed. I got all the older guys
Rick
too.
Baker.
Dick Smith, and no, I got Rick Baker,
Wow.
who's the younger one. But I got at the time Dick Smith and John Chambers.
Wow.
Really
the
old-
old-
The
old
famous
guard.
Dick
You got John
Smith.
Chambers.
And John Chambers before he passed.
I
Dick
talked
Smith-
to him by phone when he was in the Mopic home.
Yes.
I wanted to know about
You
the
get called.
Patterson Bigfoot, and he denied it.
Yeah, he denied that.
What are we
to his-
down,
to
60
his- to
seconds?
his death. The one guy I never interviewed, Rob Bottin. I've never.
Rob Watine did my
and,
life
and he
back.
lives in this area.
Yes.
Hey,
I met
did
him
he
at
do Ghoulies?
no,
No, that was
that's
Buchler.
Buchler.
Buchler. Oh,
Buchler.
Rob Bottin is the
No,
other.
Rob
Okay.
Watine lives in Covina
He
still.
lives right there.
I met, I kept hearing about what a mystery man he was. Let me know how much time before we go.
Okay, we've got to end our show. Tomorrow is the Queen Malvolia. Our new Queen. It's Hot Chick Friday tomorrow on the
Hot
Jeff
Chick
Sargent
Friday.
Show. Yes, so thank you. The Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange and
New York Bagels.
New York
Bagels.
Bagels. We're the Jeff Sargent Show.
We
Thank
love
you,
you all.
Scott
Thank you, Scott
Esmond, for
Esmond.
being
Thanks for
here.
coming in.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank
I
you.
actually have us running over a little bit, but that's fine because we started early a little bit.
Oh, that's
So
right.
Oh.
So thank you,
if
Jeff.
management is going to get on me, you know what management
What else
can
is
do?
new? What else is
Yeah,
new?
just
The
get
whole
on me.
management with a beautiful 19.
Our kindergarten class gets
Yeah.
our kindergarten radio show gets
Well,
in
Scott-
trouble every day.
Yeah,
So we got.
yeah,
Do we
put
have an
me
extra
over
5
the desk.
minutes or no? Are we off?
No, we can go if you want to go. It's up to Jeff. It's his show.
I've got an interview with Larry Cohen at 11.
Oh
but
shit!
let's-
We got to get you out of town and up to
Scott, you have to come back. Please come back.
All right,
Yeah,
Scott.
you
Thanks
got
for being from all the way from University of Laverne. Sign up, pay your tuition, and get this professor as
The
you're
visionary
running.
cinema of Scott D. Esmond. D. What's the D?
All
stand
right.
for?
E
E.
stands for Edward.
All right, we're out of here.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.